And he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God.
The revelation of Jesus Christ.
We've talked about the first part of this, but I'm going to just briefly go back over that, and then we'll proceed. And it is my hope that I might finish up this chapter this evening. And that means if I do, I get to talk about the mark of the beast, which is in the final couple of verses there. I'm looking forward to that. This is the beast from the earth, the third beastly character. Now, the dragon is not called a beast, so I understand that. But there are these three characters, and the second two are called beasts. And we questioned, what does the earth mean? The first beast came out of the sea, and we found that was the abyss. And in contrast to that, we thought the land ought to stand for something. And my conclusion on that, which I told you could take with a grain of salt, because I didn't find it anywhere else. I don't say that to brag. I say that to warn you. But this is what looks right to me. I think he's natural by contrast to the one who came out of the abyss, comes off from the earth. And as to who he is, we saw that he's identified in other passages later on as the false prophet. We saw in this Trinity, this unholy Trinity, not really a Trinity, and yet Satan's best effort to imitate one. He's the Holy Spirit. He is the chief religious assistant to the first beast. The first beast is more political, and he wants to have the support of religion. Going to be a one world religion. And the beast, this third one, is the head of that. It has been proposed and is commonly believed that he is Jewish. But that comes out of the idea that the land from which he comes is Israel, and we've said that we don't accept that. And unbelieving Jews probably don't need much encouragement to follow the beast. And in the view of the worldwide ambition of worship, someone of Jewish descent might not be the best one to lead the religious effort. Saw that he had two horns like a lamb, probably simply to identify him as a lamb. He spoke as a dragon. The dragon is the serpent from chapter 12 and following. The second beast carries Satan's message. Now I have to be careful here because I'm talking almost like second beast and third beast when I'm talking about the same thing, and I'm able to get folks confused without doing that. So the second beast here, dragon, first beast, second beast. Let's see if I can continue that. I don't know if I can or not, but I might. Where the first beast is loud and blasphemous, the second beast is gentle and seductive, a lot like Satan's techniques in the world today. Roaring lion, or disguising himself as an angel of light. His authority, the authority of this second beast, comes from the first beast, the Antichrist. They work together intimately. It speaks of the earth and those who dwell in it who are deceived, and that includes Israel and the 144,000. He has the authority, but he does not get these to worship. The signs that are worked by the beast are mentioned in verse 13. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. we talked about the fact that Scripture has warned us that there would be false signs and lying wonders, and certainly they come to the fore in this last half of the tribulation period. The two witnesses were bringing down fire out of heaven. We talked about the fact that those two witnesses in their 3.5 years paralleled the time that we're looking at here. So when they got to the end and were taken up into heaven, the 3.5 years were over, and we're back looking at a different aspect of the same 3.5 years. Fire from heaven had been a sign of God's action in various things. It was to impress that this was actually from God. And now God has permitted Satan to do the same thing in this last and terrible time. Verse 14, we have the effect of these false signs. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. So the reprobates, those who would not be saved, those who are followers of Satan, are deceived. Deceives is in the present tense in the Greek text, which, as you know by now, has a little bit different impact than the present tense in English. This is a graphic, immediate reference to future action. This is something which hasn't happened yet, surely, in John's time, but he's using the present tense, which normally I might take as being way back then, but of course it's not. And that device is used quite frequently in the Gospels in particular. And if you use a copy of the New American Standard Bible, you'll find an asterisk in your Bible alongside a word every time that device is used. And it will be translated as a past tense, as we might expect, but in fact in the original text it has used a present tense. And so if you pay attention to those asterisks, you can see that it just happens a lot of the time. It's just to make it graphic. It's like you're there and you're watching and these things are happening. And that's the kind of an action it is. And of course it also speaks of the fact that this is ongoing. He is deceiving continually. Those who dwell on the earth is the technical phrase. A little bit earlier, last week, we talked about one that was similar, which was not the technical phrase. There, it was talking about everybody on the earth, including the 144,000 and those who were God's people. Here, those who dwell on the earth is the technical term, which means only the reprobates, only those who are unsaved. Support for making an image of the beast. Some thought this image was an image on a coin, and that word is certainly used. The word for image here is used for an image on a coin, such as the Roman emperors would have put on the Roman coins. But it's more likely that this is talking about the abomination of desolation. It had been prophesied in Daniel 11:45 that there would be this abomination of desolation. Matthew 24:15, Jesus had repeated about this abomination of desolation. And 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 4, in the epistles we have this abomination of desolation. And that's what this image is, I'm pretty sure. So this image is set up in the restored temple. Not much written about this temple, but that was the thing that we suspect happened very early in the tribulation period, because there was, according to Daniel 9:27 following, an agreement between the Antichrist and the people of Israel, and they get their temple back, and this is the temple this image is set up in. This image is a factor several times from here going forward. This is the first reference to the image, but in the remainder of the book of Revelation, this image is mentioned 10 times. which is quite a bit. And then verse 15 speaks of giving breath to the image. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beasts, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So it was given him. He was given the ability. Doesn't say who gave it to him. He's working on the authority and power of the Antichrist, so we'd suppose that this was something that the Antichrist could do during this last 3.5 years, and he's doing it. Some folks think it's ventriloquism, that people were just throwing their voice, and that's something that was used in the first century in magic. But I don't think that this is speaking of ventriloquism. Giving breath to the beast but to the image doesn't sound like ventriloquism. Sounds like the image itself was speaking. Giving breath and speaks to an image does seem within the potential of computer development. No, I didn't read about that either, but I was looking at this thing and I'm thinking, you know, these days with the computers, that wouldn't be much of a trick. No. I can talk to this phone in my pocket and it will answer me. And it'll tell me all kinds of things. Well, this image of the beast, a little bit more, but would it be much to add the ability to have breath? That would, if you've ever gone through Disneyland, I have not gone through Disneyland since ancient history. Been a long, long time ago. I was shocked to hear what the prices are today. Let me tell you, when I went, the prices weren't like they are now.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
But they've managed to have these images that can stand up and talk and do all manner of things, and so it wouldn't be much of a trick to do that way. But I don't think that's what's happening.
50s.
Yes, yeah. So I don't think that would inspire worship today. What do you think? We've seen this before. That's not going to do it. Giving breath may be the equivalent of giving life. Breath of life is the way it's expressed in the book of Genesis. Could be advanced genetic engineering. You know, I'm reminded of the story of was it Satan that said he could make life, and God said, well, go for it, and he picked up some dirt, and God said, no, get your own dirt. Yeah. You know, if you start out with something God made, it makes a project a whole lot easier. And they're trying to do that all the time. They're really working at trying to make evolution not exactly happen by accident, but they're working real hard at making it work. Not working so far, but it might look like it worked. Here, when this second beast comes along and gives breath to this image, they might be then, oh, we finally got there. And you can imagine they'd be willing to fall for almost anything to think that they'd succeeded in that. So I think maybe Satan may be manipulating genetic material that God made and manages to put it together and give life to an image. The next thing is killing those who do not worship the beast, causing to be killed. It's the image that causes to be killed. This image has the breath, and it's saying, okay, now kill everybody that won't worship the beast. That's been the penalty before, hasn't it? Sometimes religions get so into what they're doing. I mean, the Roman Catholic Church did it, didn't they? In the Inquisition? Nebuchadnezzar did it. He had some helpers that made the suggestion, but he wasn't too opposed to it, evidently. And he said, anybody that doesn't fall down and worship, we're going to throw them in the furnace. Yeah. Here's a quote. A fellow by the name of Charles. I don't know him, but I'm giving him credit. You don't know him either, but Charles gets the credit.
Which Charles?
It's a Charles who was an historian.
Oh, I see.
Quote,
That's us out.
that refusal to worship the image of the emperor carried with it capital punishment in Trajan's time is clear from Pliny's letter to Trajan. Roman numeral 1096. So in Trajan's time, he was one of the emperors in Rome. And in his time, if you didn't worship the image, there was a death penalty attached. So it's not the first time this sort of thing has been tried. It'll be the first time that it has been worldwide. Everybody on earth, you worship the beast. We're all going to be in this together. We're going to have this one world religion. We're not going to have any dissenters. It's all going to be just exactly what we say. You know, aren't you glad God has patience with us when we do wrong things? Satan doesn't have that kind of patience. He's ready to put them to the fire or the sword or whatever it is just right away. Of course, those protected in the wilderness are going to survive. We don't think this totally eliminates others, though. When you start the millennium, it's not all Jewish. There are people from all the nations, as you read the various prophecies concerning the millennium, and the folks from the other nations are coming and bringing their wealth to Jerusalem and so forth. So there have to be some people from other nations that survive this. And it couldn't be anybody that had been worshiping the beast, because anybody that worships the beast gets destroyed before the end of the tribulation period. So this is an effort on the part of the dragon and the two beasts to kill everyone who will not worship. It will not be universally effective. That doesn't mean that it won't be very effective and kill a lot of people, but it won't be universally effective. So this has led some people to think that it's only a sentence to death, not actually being killed. In other words, anybody that won't worship the beast gets a sentence of death. And maybe like these days, you can go on for another 10 or 20 years, you got the sentence of death, but you don't really die, you know. But I don't think that's it. It does not fit the text, which says they are caused to be killed. It doesn't say they're caused to be sentenced, they're caused to be killed. And then in verse 16, we have initiating the mark of the beast. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. So they're going to limit commerce by the mark. It's the second beast who introduces the mark. And there are three categories of people. To be sure we understand, this is absolutely universal. By rank, it's the small and the great. By wealth, it's the rich and the poor. By liberty, it's the free and the slave. Three different ways to categorize. They cross over one another, and it's just absolutely everybody. They have to receive the mark. The 144,000 were given a mark in chapter 7. That was early in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. So they had already been given the mark, and this would be soon after that. So God's 144,000 given a mark, and then, okay, Satan says, now we're going to mark out everybody. We're just going to give everybody a mark. God's mark protects the saints against the wrath of God. You remember the four winds were being held back before God's mark was given. Satan's mark threatens the saints with the wrath of the beast. So the war is joined. This is just dead head-on collision, one against the other. And then we want to identify the mark, historical marks of which we know. They had an official stamp that they sometimes stamped on people. Phylacteries were used to mark people sometimes. The X, the key in Greek that looks like an X in English, was used to mark Christ's name on some. There was also an invisible mark that was used, and there was a branded mark that was used. You can think painful branding of a mark on. So there were several varieties of marks in historical times. What was the function? They were used on official documents, and sometimes they were used as a condition of buying and selling. So if you didn't have this mark, you couldn't buy or sell in historical times. There are problems with these, however, as being the mark of the beast, because this mark of the beast was on the right hand or on the forehead. So invisible doesn't work. This is going to be visible. That's part of the point of it. Phylacteries were, interestingly enough, worn on the left hand or the left arm, so they don't fit. In chapter 7, John saw the marks on the ones that were marked there, but that's not necessarily too strong an argument here. The placement seems to have visibility as a purpose. Satan would not use God's marks as insignia. I think that's about as strong as any argument that these don't fit. I mean, he doesn't want God's mark. He wants to have his own mark. What marks were given at that time? I don't mean the mark itself. I mean the idea of giving marks to somebody. Soldiers, slaves, and people devoted to a temple were marked. A soldier would receive a mark. He's a soldier. And they'd actually mark it on the person of the soldier. Slaves were marked, often with the name of the owner of the slave. And people devoted to a temple would mark themselves. In some ways, we do some of these things today, don't we? People mark themselves for their identification, for their Hebrew, for their favorite, what did I just say? For their Hebrew. That isn't what I wanted to say. Hero. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. A tattoo would be used to mark the follower of a certain god. If you followed one of the pagan gods, you might put a tattoo on yourself to mark yourself as a follower of that pagan god. Slaves would be marked to identify their owners. That's kind of a protection on my property deal. The term that's used here for a mark was used for an image or name of an emperor on a coin. Okay, so those were all known marks at the time when John wrote this. What significance did these marks have? One idea is that they were degrading, but you know, it didn't fit that time. Being a slave was not as degrading then as it would be, you know, Uncle Tom's Cabin today sort of thing. Slavery didn't carry the modern stigma. It might signify protection, as it did in chapter 7. It could also be a boast of loyalty that a sports fan might make. Yay, go 49ers! I got my mark! Well, no, I don't, but, you know, people do that. Verse 17, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. So no one can buy or sell. The mark is a tool to force identity with the beast and worship of the beast. Without the mark, no one's authorized to buy or sell anything. And of course, if you're in the marketplace and you're selling the goods and you don't see the mark on the person's hand or forehead, you're in trouble if you sell the stuff. So it's going to be a powerful thing. In verse 15, we already have the decision to kill anyone who would not worship. Anyone who will not worship is subject to the death penalty. The mark then just facilitates that decision. Makes it easier to enforce. Got to have the mark. And the mark identifies those who do worship the beast and therefore are approved to live, and only if you're approved to live. You don't need to buy and sell stuff if you're going to die. So if you've got the mark, you're approved to live, and you can buy and sell stuff. So you can see how everybody would be pressured towards worship. What's Satan's goal? What is it that Satan has wanted from the very beginning? Worship. He wants to be worshiped. He wants to be as God. He's not particularly interested in people being killed here. That's a means to an end. The end is to get to worship. He'd rather have that. And the mark is the name or the number. Did you see the word either in italics? Either. What did the italics tell us? Wasn't in the Greek text. The translator added it to make it clearer to us what the meaning was of that passage. But actually what we have is we don't have that word, but we have words in apposition. Apposition's a context that's not too easy to get a hold of. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of the name. Apposition says the mark is in apposition to the name or the number. And the apposition says it's talking about the same thing, the mark. And if I were supplying something there, and I'm not a translator, and I'd never qualify to be one, but if I were putting something there, I'd put the word even in italics. It's not there either. But that's the idea, except the one who has the mark, even the name of the beast or the number of his name. So the mark is either the name or the number. You could pronounce the letters as a name, or you could calculate the letters as a number. You're familiar with letters being used for digits, for numbering? Roman numerals, right? And the X means something, the C means something, the L means something, and the M means something, and you have all these letters that have a numerical value. In some systems, the first letter of the alphabet, A, equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and you get down until you've gotten through 9, and then at J, I think it is, it means 10. Guess what K means? 20. L would be 30. 10, 20, 30. Do you see where this is going? And so there were these kinds of things where you could use the letters to be numbers. So verse 18 says, here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. First thing it says there is, here is wisdom. Here is skill and understanding to resolve the mystery of the number. Believers are going to need this when the time comes. John is not giving it at that time. It wasn't to be given at that time. But we're being told that the wisdom in the end time is going to help people to use this as an identification, to know with whom they are dealing. Him who has understanding, that'll be the believer. The believer will be given the understanding when the time comes. Daniel spoke kind of on the fringes of this, Daniel 12:9 through 11. He said, "Go on your way, Daniel, for the words are secret, sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, cleansed, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly. None of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand. From the time the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days." He's talking about our last 3.5 years of the tribulation there. And he's talking about Daniel's day. He's not going to get it, but in that day they'll get what? They're going to get understanding. The wicked going to understand? No. Just be the righteous who get this understanding when that time comes. And that person will calculate the number of the beast. Calculate means count. Actually, the literal word is pebble. You're not counting on your fingers here, folks. What are you counting with? You're using pebbles. You're using rocks. Calculate. Proposed. This number has no numerical precision. It's just a general instruction to identify the beast from general features. How would they use that idea? Well, 6 is the number of a man. 7 is the number of perfection, and 6 is the number of a man, because the man never quite reaches perfection at 7. 8 is the number of Christ, and nobody's getting up there. And then you have triples, 666, 777, 888, and that just intensifies things. So the beast falls short. His number is 666. He can't get to the 7, can't get to the 8. There's a weakness with that idea. It ignores the instruction to calculate. If it's just a general idea, then why do you have to do any calculation? You're not going to require any math to get this done. And it cannot specifically identify a person. And this is about identifying. This is about loyalty to the Antichrist. So that proposal fails, but there's another proposal that the letters represent numbers, and it says, I've been telling you before, A equals 1, Roman numerals, and so forth. There's a precaution. The number 666 should not be applied until the time comes. Why not? Because God has told us that you're going to have to be given understanding to get it. When's He going to give the understanding? When it's needed, at the time. So we got no business trying to calculate out who is the 666. There have been a lot of people. I guess the most prominent name on the list is Nero. Nero Caesar can be rendered to be 666, and so they decided Nero Caesar was the 666, the Antichrist. Didn't work out. They didn't get it right. It says here the number is the number of a man. Now that could mean one of two things. If it's the number of a man can understand it. It is humanly intelligible. Or, secondly, maybe it's the number of a specific man. Well, if it means that the number is humanly intelligible, it really says nothing. This is written to us, we're supposed to understand it. And why give it to us if it's not humanly understandable? And what would a non-humanly intelligible number be? So I don't think it's talking about that. We're going to take it as a number that identifies a man. The number of a man identifies a man. When that man comes, God will give understanding. Now, here's a point that I missed for a long, long time. The number identifies the beast. It does not identify different people. This is not like a number on your Social Security. It's a number unique to you. It's not for that purpose. This is a number that says, I am loyal to the beast. This number represents the beast. On everybody, the same thing represents the same thing. This is a number which says, I am loyal, I am a worshiper of the Antichrist, I should be able to buy and sell. It doesn't say what my bank account is. It says where my loyalty lies. And for me, that's a big difference from the things that I've heard for a long, long time about the mark of the beast. People are saying, well, you know, we're getting closer. And I've said it myself. We're getting closer because, you know, they've come up with ways to identify you, and they're working on it. And they're reading your eyeballs now, or taking your facial features, and it's getting awful close to the mark of the beast. No, it really isn't. Because this mark is a visible mark on the hand or on the forehead, which says, I'm loyal. And it identifies, you're saying, the beast, the beast, the beast. And it's not anything to identify you other than that you're loyal. How about that? Now, do I have any notes here? You could combine both, couldn't you? You could have a symbol of the beast there, and then after that you could have like a Social Security number. It could be both. But both is not required here. That's my point. Could it be at this future date that it would be both, I am loyal and here's my credit card number? Yeah, it sure could be. But the mark of the beast is not the thing that identifies you as opposed to somebody else. The mark of the beast is the thing that identifies you as loyal to the Antichrist, worshiper of Satan. Questions or comments? All right. Let's give thanks for the food.